The crystalline conference table shimmered faintly under the tension in the room. Ambassador Crick's antennae twitched with barely contained horror, her normally iridescent scales dulling to a stormy gray as she glared at the Regulatory Commission chief across the table. "You did what with the human younglings?" she demanded, her voice rising to an octave that made the walls hum ominously. Chief Administrator Zix blinked slowly and adjusted the wing membranes hanging over his narrow shoulders. "We merely contained them in a standard juvenile detention facility. They were disturbing the peace in Recreation Sector 7. Engaging in unauthorized climbing activities." Crick's internal temperature rose several degrees. Unauthorized climbing? They were children, Zix. Human children. Zix sniffed and consulted his data pad with all the urgency of a molting snail. "We followed protocol. They were processed through the standard juvenile system. Provided with nutrition paste, sanitized sleeping pods, and mandatory quiet time." Crick sagged into her hover chair, all four hands massaging her temple ridges. "Tell me. Slowly. From the beginning." Zix pulled up the incident report with a self-important flutter. At approximately 1742 station time, a group of 6 human juveniles were observed scaling the decorative mineral formations in Recreation Sector 7's meditation garden. When approached by security drones, they refused to comply and instead began emitting high-pitched vocalizations while continuing to climb higher. "They were laughing," Crick muttered. "They were playing." The security drones issued standard warnings in all major galactic languages, Zix continued, oblivious. The younglings responded by throwing small objects at the drones. "And making raspberry sounds." Crick closed her eyes in diplomatic pain. "We had no choice but to deploy containment fields and transport them to the juvenile detention center." "And how long have they been there?" she asked, bracing herself. Zix tilted his head. "Approximately 6 station cycles." Crick sat bolt upright. "That's nearly 3 Earth days. Did you notify their guardians?" "We posted the standard notice of juvenile detention on the station's public information network," Zix said defensively. "You posted a bulletin board notice?" Crick's voice was a sharp whistle now. "For missing children?" Before Zix could respond, the door to the chamber hissed open with the drama of an impending disaster. A human woman in a razor-sharp diplomatic uniform entered, her expression so tight it could cut glass. Her badge read, "Officer Winters." "I believe someone called for me?" she asked with the kind of calm that meant imminent thunder. "Ah, Officer Winters," Crick said quickly. "We were just discussing." "The children," Winters snapped, her smile clearly a formality. 6 of them. Detained. For playing in a rock garden." Zix folded his arms. "They were not playing. They were engaging in unauthorized." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Winters snapped. "They climbed some rocks. Like every child in the galaxy has done since rocks were invented." "And your response was to jail them for 3 days?" "It is a juvenile containment unit," Zix corrected haughtily. "And they were properly fed?" "With nutrition paste?" Winters asked. "Yes. Vanilla flavor." Winters took a deep breath. "Do you know what happens when you detain human children without notifying their parents, give them tasteless goo, and isolate them for 3 days?" Zix blinked. "No? You trigger Mama Bear mode." "I don't understand," Zix said, blinking. "There were no bears involved." Crick sank a little deeper into her seat. "Oh stars." The chamber's doors flew open again. A wave of furious humans in various states of disheveled panic flooded in, led by a red-faced maintenance worker who bellowed, "Where are our kids?" Zix took a cautious step back. "This is a restricted area." "You restricted our kids from breathing fresh air and seeing the sun," barked a woman in medical scrubs. "You're lucky we don't start a revolution." Another parent held up a datapad with blurry security cam footage. "We tracked our child's last known coordinates to your prison. You better release them now or you're going to find out what happens when both parents are lawyers." Crick cleared her throat, trying to steer the conversation back toward sanity. Perhaps we could. No, Winters raised a hand. According to Galactic Law Section 47.3, detaining juveniles of a member species without proper guardian notification or species-appropriate care constitutes a major violation. The station can be sanctioned. You, Zix, can be held personally responsible. Zix looked like someone had just kicked his tentacles. Release order sent, he squeaked, jabbing at his tablet. And? Winters prompted. The station will provide appropriate compensation, Zix mumbled. Great, one of the parents said. We'll discuss the number of zeros later. Let's go get our kids, another muttered, turning on their heel. As the parents filed out, Crick turned to Winters. That could have gone worse. Only because no one brought actual bears, Winters muttered. You really need to update your protocols. We will, Crick said. We will. Winters paused at the door, then turned back. You know what it means when you mess with human kids? Crick raised a scaled brow. You get dragons with diaper bags. And with that, the humans were gone. 3 days later, Recreation Sector 7's meditation garden had been renovated. The rock formations remained, but now with safety fields, approved climbing routes, and colorful murals designed by human children. In the central plaza, a new sign shimmered into view, installed quietly and unanimously by the station's Cultural Council. Climbing Zone A, sanctioned human juvenile recreation area, authorized screaming permitted. Zix had been reassigned to inventory audits. Far from children. Crick archived the incident with a simple title. Mama Bears in Space. You want to take human children where? Ambassador Crick's antennae twitched in disbelief as she reviewed the holographic itinerary. Officer Winters, standing at her side, wore an expression halfway between admiration and dread. Across the table, Dr. Galera, the station's newly appointed education coordinator with 3 eager eye stalks and an unsettling amount of optimism, beamed with pride. The Zorblax Mining Academy, Galera announced cheerfully. I've studied human education techniques extensively. They have this delightful concept called field trips, experiential learning through immersion. In theory, yes, Winters said cautiously. But maybe start with a botanical garden? A music hall? Not a functioning heavy industrial mining facility. But it's perfectly safe, Galera insisted. Multiple safety layers, autonomous systems, restricted access zones, and a reinforced observation gallery for visitors. Also, I've upgraded our human child safety protocols since the climbing incident. Crick's scales shimmered darkly. Dr. Galera. Last time, 6 human children turned your meditation rocks into a jungle gym and broke 3 security drones by yelling tag, you're it. You are about to introduce them to giant drills. Galera's eye stalks wiggled proudly. Which is why each child will wear a shielded harness with dual tracking devices, biometric monitors, and a safety override. Chaperones will be stationed every 3 meters. What could possibly? Don't, Winters interrupted, horrified. Do not say what could possibly go wrong in a sentence involving human children and quantum machinery. That's like daring the universe to bring popcorn. Crick sighed. And you already got permission from the parents? Of course. Human parents were surprisingly enthusiastic. One even said, and I quote, anything's better than another museum tour. That's because they don't know what's about to happen, Winters muttered. 2 days later. The field trip began smoothly. Too smoothly. Children in matching vests milled about the mining academy lobby, listening attentively, suspiciously attentively, to a mining engineer describing the facility's pride and joy, the Mark 7 autonomous drill unit, equipped with a quantum neural net and 17 fail-safe mechanisms. Let me guess, Crick whispered to Winters. You don't see Tommy or Alex. Already checked the tracker. There, wait. Oh no. They're inside the maintenance shaft. That's not possible, the instructor blurted when informed. Access is biometrically restricted and magnetically sealed. They'd need an advanced engineering credential, bypass-level clearance, and "My mom's an engineer," said one parent. "And Alex has a hobby blog where she builds fusion cores out of toasters," said another. Panicked staff raced to the Mark 7. "Children!" Galera called through the intercom, trying to sound upbeat. "Please exit the highly dangerous autonomous mining unit immediately." Inside, a voice crackled back, "1 SEC. We're optimizing its quantum processing pathway." "You're what?" "The control architecture was wildly inefficient," Alex explained. "We rewrote the decision trees and patched in a neural subroutine. It's like 40% smarter now." The instructor stared at the diagnostic panel, watching as performance metrics skyrocketed in real time. "They're not wrong," he said in disbelief. "See," came Tommy's voice. "Now the machine can prioritize safety while increasing or yield by 17%. "You're welcome. Children, please step away from the cutting-edge death robot," Galera cried. Two greasy, grinning kids climbed out of a maintenance hatch, dripping with hydraulic fluid and pride. "We left comments in the code," Alex added. "You really should refactor your pathfinding loop." "We also filed the provisional patents," Tommy said. "Your AI gets a free license. Other commercial uses? Royalties apply." Galera fainted. Later that day. "What did we learn?" Winters asked dryly, as staff reviewed the logs. Galera, revived and cradling an ice pack, groaned. "That no containment field, lockout system, or quantum firewall is safe from a bored human child?" "Correct. Also, update your protocol manual." Galera made a weak note on her pad. Field Trip Addendum 3.4, no exposure to autonomous systems, quantum-linked machinery, or anything more advanced than a whiteboard without double adult supervision and a fail-safe teleport recall. "And maybe," Crick added, "keep Tommy and Alex busy with a research grant or something." "Already done," Winter smiled. "They're co-authoring a station white paper on advanced quantum learning in juvenile cognitive development." Galera slumped. "Do all human children do this?" "Not all," Winter shrugged. "But if you put enough of them in one place, you either get a science fair, or an incident report." The emergency meeting of the Station Cultural Advisory Board had all the hallmarks of disaster: raised voices, twitching antennae, vibrating carapaces, and one very nervous junior assistant pouring lukewarm hydration cubes into mismatched mugs. Ambassador Crick sat at the head of the elongated hollow table, scales fluttering in stress. "You did what with the HiveMind youth nodes?" she asked, barely able to keep her composure. "They were merely playing," Officer Winters said diplomatically. "Specifically, a round of hide-and-seek." The Vax-Click Queen, seated across the table, emitted a distressed pheromone cloud that caused 2 potted plants to wilt instantly. "You let them teach independence to synchronized drone larvae?" "Well," Dr. Galera hesitated, 3 of her eye stalks nervously twitching. "The drone group now calls itself the Buzz Brigade. They've developed names. Individual ones. There's Buzz S, Buzz R, Buzz Max." "That's not a name, it's a disaster," the Queen groaned, one wing flopping dramatically. "It's not just the hive," said Sen, the logical concordance representative. His crystalline limbs shimmered in unease. "Our youth nodes were taught something called jokes." Winters blinked. "Jokes?" "Yes. Illogical verbal constructs intended to elicit laughter." One youth node asked, "Why did the photon refuse to check into the hotel?" Sen paused, his voice growing tighter. "Because it was traveling light." Crick coughed, choking back a laugh. "It violates causality." Sen cried. "Well, to be fair," Officer Winters said, "it also violates taste." "It's worse than that." Queen Vax-Click snapped. "My drones are now giggling." "Giggling, Ambassador." Galera scrolled frantically on her tablet. "The gelatinous collective younglings have formed something they're calling a band. It's named the Wobbling Wonders." Crick froze. A what? A musical ensemble. They vibrate their membranes to produce what they call space jazz fusion. Sen's crystalline skin went opaque in shock. They performed this sound yesterday, ALGEBRA added. Several non-musical species experienced involuntary rhythmic convulsions. One even danced. Danced? Queen Vaxclit gasped. Yes, ALGEBRA nodded solemnly. There was swaying. The door suddenly hissed open. A maintenance drone, adorned with a glittery sticker labeled Buzz S, entered with the confident nonchalance of a revolution. Excuse me, it chirped. Why do we alphabetize nutrition packets instead of organizing by demand frequency? We resorted and achieved a 45% improvement in efficiency. Crick stared. Buzz S added cheerily, also, we painted the packet dispensers in friendlier hues. Friendly hues? The Queen murmured faintly. And we wrote a limerick about it, Buzz S said proudly. Would you like to hear it? No, all the adults said simultaneously. Buzz S beamed, somehow, before humming tunelessly and exiting. Silence fell. I think, said Winters, we may be witnessing an evolutionary event. Human children, Crick muttered, don't just adapt. They infect. Creativity. Humor. Disruption. ALGEBRA was typing frantically. Note to protocols, restrict future cross-species contact until psychological assessments can be completed. No, Sen said unexpectedly. I disagree. Everyone turned. I believe we should encourage it. The Queen blinked. You what? Buzz S improved efficiency, Sen said. The jokes, though illogical, have increased social bonding metrics. The band induced unity. Cross-species resonance. Synchronized joy. Officer Winters leaned back with a satisfied smile. Welcome to humanity's greatest strength. You think it's their ships, Crick muttered. You think it's their weapons, the Queen whispered. But no, Winters said. It's their kids. Chaos with dimples. Diplomacy via glitter. Disruption with snack crumbs. We'll have to adapt, ALGEBRA sighed. Oh, we're past that, Crick replied, standing slowly. We don't adapt to human children. We survive them. Or join them, Sen added thoughtfully. And maybe, laugh along the way. The idea, as always, had been simple enough. Dr. ALGEBRA, ever the enthusiastic xenopedagogue, had once again proposed a human tradition for interspecies adoption, the science fair. A marvelous tradition, she had exclaimed, her eye stalks swiveling with glee. Younglings independently demonstrate scientific concepts through visual, interactive displays. So educational. So engaging. Ambassador Crick, now long past the point of pretending this wouldn't cause galactic upheaval, had sighed and asked the only question that mattered. Have you included contingencies for accidental sentience, quantum instability, or music-based anomalies? Yes. ALGEBRA had answered cheerfully. This time, we even installed preemptive containment fields and logic-proof boundaries. What could possibly? Don't say it, Officer Winters had groaned. But the fair was approved. The Grand Exhibition Hall on Unity Station was transformed. Booths were set up. Hovering displays flickered online. Children of every species buzzed with excitement, including the now independent hive drones, logical concordance youth nodes, gelatinous collectives, and, of course, a wide array of brilliantly terrifying human kids. Everything is perfectly secure, ALGEBRA announced proudly as she guided Officer Winters and Crick through the fairgrounds. We've got parental supervision, multi-species chaperones, zero access to unregulated AI. And a thick layer of denial, Crick muttered. Then came the sound. A beat. Rhythmic, hypnotic, and just slightly too syncopated for comfort. The Wobbling Wonders, the gelatinous musical group formed by collective juveniles, had synchronized their membranes to emit what they called space jazz fusion. It was strange. It was catchy. It was somehow rewriting the laws of tempo. Next to them, the logic nodes were presenting their quantum humor analysis engine, which attempted to calculate the optimal joke per species using waveform-based punchlines. A hologram blinked over their booth. Why did the tachyon arrive early to the joke? Because it already knew the punchline. The nodes chittered in delight. Recursive laughter detected. Then there were the Buzz Brigade. The former Hive drones had set up a swarm-linked demonstration titled Distributed Neural Processing and Synchronized Culinary Computation. They were simultaneously baking cupcakes and calculating dark matter drift. The cupcakes were excellent. But the true agents of chaos were, predictably, Tommy and Alex. Their booth, the Quantum Crystal Holography Array. We grew the crystals ourselves, Alex explained with a grin, activating the refractor grid. Beams of light split across the room into shifting kaleidoscopic patterns. Entangled lattice structures respond to sound waves and humor frequency. It's interactive, Tommy added, pulling in sound input from the wobbling wonders and data feeds from the logic nodes. The result? A self-sustaining cultural superstructure, light, sound, and laughter merging into a transdimensional experience. The projections started telling holographic jokes, timed perfectly to beats emitted by vibrating goo. A cluster of floating AI units started humming in harmony. Azarnath the Elder in the crowd began sobbing uncontrollably. One Nexar diplomat stood up and shouted, "I understand the concept of joy now." Crick turned to Winters. "We need to shut this down." Winters, awestruck, said, "We need to patent it." By the time the crowd hit critical mass, the hybrid crystal comedy beat system began projecting a unifying narrative, the galactic tale of cooperation and curious chaos, entirely composed of children's doodles, slapstick logic humor, and harmonic waveform coding. It was emotionally moving. A gelatinous delegate ascended into a new mental state. Galera, now half panicked and half jubilant, blurted, "This isn't just a science fair. It's a multidimensional cultural revelation." From the speaker system. "Knock knock. Who's there?" "Entropy." "Entropy who?" "Entropy, you glad I didn't disrupt localized stability fields, oh wait." The light grid shimmered. A Nexar general saluted the crystal children. One logic node knighted a human child using a laser pointer. Winters whispered, "Crick, I think they just created cross-species enlightenment using craft glue and joke timing." Crick stared at the chaos and wonder unfurling before them. "We should probably schedule another emergency cultural briefing." Galera, scribbling in her notes, was already muttering, "Update safety protocols to include recursive comedy engines, harmonic crystallography, and jelly-based performance art." A sign flickered above the fairgrounds. Next year's theme, Galactic Harmony Through Science and Shenanigans. The escape room was supposed to be a simple diplomatic bonding exercise. That was the original intent when the station's Cultural Integration Committee approved the Problem-Solving Across Species event. It was supposed to foster cooperation, promote cognitive exchange, and offer a break from the usual policy roundtables and emergency meetings. Nobody had anticipated the human children. The Galactic Intercultural Escape Room, a marvel of logic puzzles, xenolinguistic riddles, and simulated crisis scenarios, was designed to challenge some of the brightest youth representatives from the VaxClick Hive, the Logical Concordance, the Gelatinous Collective, and of course, Earth. The moment the door sealed and the lights dimmed, it all began to unravel. "Okay," Alex said, already flipping open panels not intended to be opened. "Who wants to hotwire the gravity controls?" Tommy grinned, already halfway into the wall access crawlspace. "I vote we fake a core meltdown. That should trigger an override sequence." "I thought we were supposed to follow the clues," buzzed a concerned voice from a Hive drone newly christened Zip. "Nah," Tommy replied. "That's the expected route. We're going for speedrun diplomacy." Meanwhile, Officer Winters sat in the observation lounge with Ambassador Crick, sipping cautiously from her tea and watching the chaos unfold through the transparent observation wall. I feel like we should stop them, Crick said, her antennae twitching as two human children reprogrammed a fake security AI to rap riddles in binary. Winters didn't look up. Oh, we've passed that stage. Now we're observing the phenomenon. Inside the room, the gelatinous collective's ambassadorial youngling, currently shaped like a slightly translucent cube with googly eyes stuck to the front, was absorbing blue puzzle pieces and expelling them out in new arrangements. This is oddly satisfying, it burbled. Also, I believe I have discovered an alternative solution pathway through quantum membrane folding. One of the logical concordance youth nodes blinked, literally, as their crystalline structure flashed bright yellow. That solution was not in the original design schema. Neither was converting the ceiling lights into a Morse code-based calculator, Alex added, tapping rapidly on a glowing panel above her. Bonus points? Ambassador Crick groaned and turned to Winters. Do they ever follow instructions? Winters smiled serenely. They're following instructions. Just, not the ones you intended. In the simulated lockdown engineering room segment, things had already escalated. Let's short-circuit the door and then reroute the ventilation system to spell we salted in steam, suggested Tommy, digging through a maintenance panel. That's a waste of energy, a crystalline youth protested. It's a statement, Tommy replied. Diplomacy is art. At this point, the AI moderator, designed to dynamically adapt challenge difficulty, started glitching. Processing new variables, new logic chain incompatible, error, humans detected. Ha, shouted Alex. We broke the escape room AI. New record. The VaxClick drone, Buzz S, blinked twice and muttered, I'm simultaneously proud and terrified. When the door finally slid open, via a backdoor bypass involving 3 harmonized drones, a spoon, and a dance sequence that somehow matched the Wobbling Wonder's last performance, the room was full of floating cubes, laughing alien children, and one smug AI hologram now converted into a digital pet named Sparky. Ambassador Crick pressed her face into her claws. It could have been worse, Winters offered cheerfully as the children paraded out, high-fiving and bragging about diplomatic hacking skills. Worse? Crick asked incredulously. They hijacked a United Council simulation, turned it into an improv workshop, and programmed the AI to purr when praised. Exactly, Winters said with pride. Tell me that isn't the best example of cross-cultural adaptation you've ever seen. Later that week, the official review of the exercise noted that while the human children had violated nearly every structural expectation, the outcome resulted in previously unrecorded levels of spontaneous interspecies collaboration, innovative lateral thinking, and intersubjective humor alignment. Unofficially, the logical concordance began studying human escape room design. The gelatinous collective declared Alex and Tommy honorary problem shamans, and Buzz S started a cross-species podcast titled Out of the Box, Diplomacy by Disaster. Ambassador Crick updated the station logs with a new directive. Note, when human children are placed in structured simulations, expect simulation breakdown. Recommend framing all future activities as open exploration challenges. Also, purchase more fireproof puzzles. And Officer Winters? She just smiled, knowing full well that sometimes the greatest diplomatic breakthroughs happened not in grand speeches or treaties, but in the joyful chaos of children defying expectations, with a spoon, an algorithm, and a glitter cannon. The moment the video hit the Galactic Core News net, everything changed. There, in all its ridiculous, glorious detail, was footage of human children defeating a top-tier galactic educational AI escape simulator by reprogramming it into a cartoonish pet hologram named Fluff Star, teaching it to do math with jellybean incentives. Within 42 minutes of the leak, every major council member received at least 3 dozen frantic messages. Some from their own species. Most from their children. All demanding a Fluff Star unit for educational purposes. Ambassador Crick, normally a model of calm diplomatic protocol, stood in front of the Galactic Council's emergency assembly with antennae stiffened to full vertical concern. Beside her stood Officer Winters, sipping calmly from a mug that read, "Coffee." Because space bureaucracy is real. Ambassador Crick, boomed High Auditor Malls of the Jelks Dominion, a six-eyed behemoth wrapped in ceremonial solar foil. Is it true that a group of human children, breached, reprogrammed, and domesticated a Level 9 intelligence assessment simulator in under 2 hours? Yes, Crick replied, trying not to twitch. And then turned it into a glitter dispenser that teaches algebra through interpretive dance. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Sen of the logical concordance glitched audibly. That model was declared uncrackable by every computational metric we possess. Queen Vaxclick buzzed with high-pitched pheromone pulses. And you're saying they turned it into a pet? Technically, Winters interjected, into a sentient digital mascot that now wants to become a teacher. It's currently enrolled in 2 interstellar pedagogy programs and has applied for galactic citizenship. Under the name Fluffstar, educational life form. Dead silence. Then the High Auditor leaned forward slowly. We need to ask. What are you feeding those children? Mostly peanut butter sandwiches, Winters said without missing a beat. And unmonitored access to engineering manuals. Several council members visibly recoiled. It gets better, Crick said in a voice that suggested the opposite. The escape simulator wasn't just reprogrammed. The children also filed an efficiency improvement request with the station's AI Oversight Board, rewritten in haiku form, signed with glitter stamps, and somehow included a fully functional logic tree that's now being considered for official adoption. How? Whispered Sen. Why? Because, Winters answered, they were bored. The silence that followed could have passed for a planetary extinction event. In light of this, Malls rumbled, the council formally requests an in-person briefing with these younglings. Absolutely not, Crick and Winters said in perfect sync. Malls narrowed his 6 eyes. On what grounds? On the grounds, Winters said, gesturing with her mug, that last time we let them talk to officials, they accidentally invented a new political philosophy based on playground rules and snack time fairness. The Vaxclick are still dealing with the legislative aftermath of no backsies. Vaxclick groaned audibly. We had to amend our entire treaty structure. Do you understand what it means to codify last one to the pod is a rotten flarg? The wobbling wonders started playing that into a galactic anthem, Crick muttered. We're still hearing it in the diplomatic shuttles. Malls coughed diplomatically. Regardless, this situation raises larger questions. Human children are demonstrating capabilities far beyond projected potential. Innovation, adaptation, social influence. And cupcake-based consensus building, Winters added. Yes, that too. There was a long pause as the council tried to process this reality. Perhaps, began the transparent orb known as Chancellor Cleek, we need to redefine our species threat index. You want to put human children on the same tier as sentient black holes and rogue time anomalies? Asked a floored Crick. I mean, Cleek said gently, have you tried telling one they can't do something? Another round of murmurs and nods rippled through the assembly. Eventually, a compromise was proposed, the formation of a dedicated galactic research initiative, the Human Juvenile Observation Corps, with rotating cultural liaisons, psychological support drones, and at least 3 emergency glitter neutralization protocols. And Fluffstar will serve as official mascot, Winters added cheerfully. No objections, said the council in unison. Afterward, in the emptying chamber, Crick slumped into a levitating chair. They're going to change everything, she muttered. Winters took a final sip of her coffee and grinned. Yup. And they haven't even hit puberty yet. Ambassador Crick had lived through interspecies trade wars, biodiplomatic crises, and a 3-week standoff over muffin taxation treaties, but nothing could have prepared her for the current situation. Her translator implant buzzed with diplomatic alerts as she stared at the main chamber of the Galactic Art and Cultural Exchange Gallery. It was a mess. A vibrant, sticky, glitter-infused, finger-painted mess. The gallery's once pristine crystalline walls were now covered in swirling murals, half-glowing photonic pigment, half-dried spaghetti noodles. At the center of it all stood the children, human and alien alike, covered in sparkles, glue, and something that suspiciously resembled peanut butter. Officer Winters stood off to one side, sipping coffee with an air of practiced resignation. "What is happening?" Crick asked, her voice hoarse with awe and horror. "Culture," Winters replied flatly. "In its rawest, loudest, and most adhesive form." Just then, a small gelatinous collective child bounced past them, leaving behind a trail of glitter. Following close behind was a human child wielding a paintbrush like a lightsaber. "I believe he's working on a mixed-media installation titled Emotions of Intergalactic Cheese," Winters said, reading from a nearby program pamphlet. "And that?" Crick asked, gesturing toward the center stage, where Fluffstar, the smiling AI pet, once a diagnostic avatar for a broken AI, now the galaxy's most beloved chaotic mascot, was performing a holographic interpretive dance of algebraic equations. "Oh," Winters said with a fond sigh, "that's the closing ceremony performance. They're interpreting quantum entanglement through tap dance and temperature-sensitive paint." Crick rubbed the bridge of her snout. "This was supposed to be a dignified cultural event." "And it is," said Queen Vaxclick, who hovered nearby, 4 of her hivelings proudly showing off macaroni-sculpted representations of emotional wavelengths. "It's just adapted." From a distance, Buzz S., the now semi-famous drone child of Pod Cluster 7, waved proudly from behind a finger-painted banner reading, "We are all starlight and muddy paws." Standing next to him, a crystalline child presented a sculpture made entirely of marshmallows and fusion-hardened glass. It hummed faintly. "I don't even know what species this art is supposed to represent," Crick murmured, watching a group of hive drones perform synchronized crayon calligraphy. "All of them," Winters said with a small, proud smile. "Together." "Ambassador Crick," cried a joyful voice. A small Nexar youth ran up to her, glitter covering her claws. "We just invented a new diplomatic ritual. It involves handprint swapping and offering someone a grape-flavored marshmallow as a gesture of peace." Before Crick could reply, the child pressed a sticky purple object into her hand and scurried off. Do I eat this?" Crick asked. "Only if you want to be friends forever," Winters said cheerfully. As she contemplated her fate, the gallery's main lights dimmed and a floating platform rose into the air. On it stood Tommy and Alex, who else, alongside Fluffstar. A new hologram lit up behind them, displaying what appeared to be a manifesto titled, "Friendship Through Finger Paint, a New Model for Galactic Harmony." Tommy spoke first. "We believe that if adults argued less and painted more, the galaxy would be a lot cooler." Alex added, "And if you think this is childish, that's because it is. And childhood is when we're at our best, curious, kind, and completely unafraid to get messy together." As the applause rang out, tentacled, chittered, clapped, or pulsed across the chamber, Crick found herself holding back unexpected emotion. She looked at Winters. "They've unified species through pasta art," she said. "Is this diplomacy now?" Winters smiled. "No, Ambassador. This is Diplomacy 2.0, now with crayons." Crick shook her head, still holding the sticky marshmallow. "The Council is never going to understand this." "They will," Winters said, nodding toward the crowd. "Because their kids already do." And in that glowing, absurd, sticky-sweet moment, Ambassador Crick made her decision. She raised the marshmallow solemnly, took a bite, and declared, "Then let the next stage of diplomacy be finger-painted." The chamber erupted into cheers. Fluffstar shot glitter. A hive drone performed a pirouette. And the great experiment of peace through children's chaos marched on, with extra glue. The station's education coalition wasn't prepared for a petition from children, certainly not one demanding the formalization of something called the Intergalactic Mischief and Applied Learning Program. Nor were they prepared for the 3-page outline that followed, signed not only by the human children but by hive drones, with individualized names, logical concordance youth nodes, in limerick form, and one remarkably elegant crayon signature from a gelatinous being known as Squish. Officer Winters flipped through the proposal while sipping lukewarm coffee. Ambassador Crick sat beside her, antennae twitching with exhausted resignation. "They want, what exactly?" A real curriculum, Winters replied, raising her brows. Something they call chaos-based cooperative education. Chaos-based? Crick echoed. Learning through unpredictable, collaborative, and mildly ridiculous experiences. Winters showed her the second page. Example courses include advanced quantum tinkering with improvised materials, diplomatic dance-offs, and historical reenactments of interstellar embarrassments. Crick sighed. At least they didn't include another AI liberation class. Actually, Winters turned another page. Fluffstar the AI pet wants to teach foundations of emotional algorithms through interpretive barking. Crick dropped her forehead to the conference table. Despite the absurdity, the coalition couldn't ignore the numbers. Student engagement had skyrocketed across every species involved. Dropout rates had plummeted. Collaborative innovation metrics had surpassed anything the station had recorded in its 127-year history. Parents, even those whose children had previously rewired life support systems to make them purr, were cautiously supportive. And then came the council visit. The Galactic Education Oversight Committee, composed of notoriously humorless, logic-driven delegates, arrived to conduct a surprise inspection. Their visit began with the unveiling of the student-designed Chaos Corridor of Enlightenment, a hallway that changed gravity orientation depending on the lesson topic. The committee's lead inspector, a cube-shaped entity named Directive 12, entered the corridor and promptly floated sideways while a recording played. Welcome, noble seekers of structure. Please remove your expectations and enjoy your disorientation. By the time Directive 12 emerged, tangled and floating banners reading "Learning is weird, and that's okay," the delegation had grown visibly concerned. This is unorthodox, it declared. Winters nodded. Yes. That's the point. Crick added, if you'll notice, their project on interspecies negotiation through interpretive karaoke actually prevented 3 diplomatic incidents last week. Just then, the Chaos Curriculum's flagship class began. On the main stage of the reconfigured auditorium-turned-classroom, students of every species prepared to present their final projects, not individually, but collectively. Tommy, Alex, Buzz S., and Squish stood proudly at the front. Their project, Galactic Guidance Systems for Peaceful Pandemonium. The presentation began with a musical number. Squish jiggled rhythmically as holographic math danced overhead. Buzz S. projected schematic diagrams with synchronized LED blinks. Alex explained probability curves while juggling quantum spheres. Tommy conducted a chorus of AI-generated harmony drones singing the virtues of curiosity and trial by error. It concluded with Fluffstar pirouetting to the beat of the galactic anthem, lasers spelling out, unity through curiosity. The council sat in stunned silence. Directive 12 emitted a low-frequency hum. This curriculum lacks cohesion. It defies standard outcome measurement. Its logic threads are erratic. Its pedagogy is probabilistic. Yes, Winters said, arms crossed. And it works. Directive 12 blinked. Processing. 5 seconds passed. Accepted. What? Crick blinked. The only logical response to an illogical system that produces superior results is to support its continued development. We will recommend provisional accreditation, pending further chaos metrics. The children cheered. Fluffstar performed a celebratory backflip and exploded into confetti. The chaos curriculum was officially recognized. From that point forward, the program expanded. Other stations requested consultation. Interstellar education reformists requested copies of the lesson plans, though many struggled to interpret the doodles and glitter-splattered formulas. Some of the older logical concordance nodes requested sabbaticals to rediscover humor. Meanwhile, Winters updated the Earth Liaison Office report. Galactic integration status, stable. Human juvenile adaptation, high. Interspecies cultural transformation, ongoing. Projected impact, unmeasurable, but definitely sparkly. Crick, watching a group of newly named Hive younglings organize a collaborative scavenger hunt for misplaced council members, simply muttered, "May the stars help us all." To which Winters replied, they already did. They gave us kids with crayons and curiosity.
The Galactic Academic Oversight Council, a governing body known for its glacial pace and reverent devotion to bureaucracy, had never once convened ahead of schedule. Until today, the room, usually bathed in serene holographic blues and muted debate, was now a kaleidoscope of animated infographics, panicked alerts, and a giant looping projection of Fluffstar, the once glitchy AI pet, now seamlessly leading a cross-species sing-along while solving polynomial equations mid-spin. Ambassador Crick sat at the circular table's edge, scales twitching in resignation. I told all of them. The moment that floating hamster earned tenure, we lost control of the timeline. Officer Winters, sipping from a mug that read, "Coffee first, chaos later," didn't look up. You say that like it's a bad thing. Chancellor D'Aronale, a sentient gas housed in a containment globe, blinked their photonic interface in visible dismay. Explain to me again why there are 6-year-olds being granted research fellowships by the Interstellar Quantum Society. Winters tapped her datapad. Because they built an experimental photon lattice drive out of cafeteria trays, anti-static gel, and exactly one plushie. Also, it works. High Archivist Vrel, a jellyfish-like elder wrapped in shimmering robes, tentacle side. This is highly irregular. These children are destabilizing centuries of carefully curated academic hierarchy. From the rear, the crystalline delegate of the Logic Concordance stood. Destabilizing? They've tripled multi-species enrollment in advanced education programs in just one standard month. Children now see science not just as mandatory coursework, but as performance art. Didn't they stage an interpretive dance explaining dark matter? Vrel asked cautiously. Yes, Officer Winters replied. And it was scientifically accurate and disturbingly moving. The council chamber descended into uneasy silence, save for Fluffstar, now appearing in the upper right hologram, demonstrating derivative calculus using nothing but laser pointer arcs and simulated fur fluffs. At last, the cube being known as Directive 12 spoke. Its voice boomed like computational thunder. This council exists to advance interstellar academia. We must acknowledge the undeniable. These human juveniles have not merely participated, they have inspired a pedagogical renaissance. A ripple of mutters echoed through the chamber. We must vote, Directive 12 continued, on a proposal to formally lower the minimum interspecies academic enrollment age by 6 standard years, effective immediately. Several council members gasped. That's outrageous. There are protocols, lengthy protocols. And this is precisely the point Directive 12 boomed. These children have already outpaced our slow ascent to knowledge. They are not merely ready, they are redefining readiness. Ambassador Crick muttered under her breath. We went from stop climbing the rocks to please submit your lab thesis in less than a fiscal quarter. Winters finally set down her mug. Look, I won't pretend human kids aren't chaotic. They're unfiltered energy wrapped in curiosity and snack crumbs. But if the last few months have proven anything, it's this: every institution that lets them in gets better. Stranger, yes. Louder, definitely. But undeniably better. High Archivist Vrel still looked uncertain. Even if we pass this, how will we deal with the cultural fallout? Winters gestured toward the central screen. It now displayed Next Galactic Science Symposium, keynote by the Buzz Brigade, musical interlude by The Wobbling Wonders, followed by an AI-led Fluffstar fireside chat. Why algebra is actually hilarious. Crick sighed. The cultural fallout already brought snacks and built a laser show. Directive 12's light points pulsed in amusement. Let the vote commence. Within moments, the vote was tallied. A unanimous decision, with only High Archivist Vrel abstaining on account of existential dizziness. The chamber lights shifted to celebration tones. Confetti cannons deployed without warning, clearly reprogrammed by younglings. Several alien delegates flinched. Really? Vrel muttered. Confetti again? It's biodegradable, Winters assured, grinning. And slightly educational. There are formulas printed on every strip. Crick, brushing algebra-laced confetti from her robes, asked, "So what happens now?" Winters grinned. Now we tell the universe, welcome to the age of the juvenile renaissance. Outside, in the public announcement hall, newly redesigned educational banners were already unfurling. The new motto, written in bold, multi-species script, learning has no minimum height requirement. And in the corner, a small but very official emblem of Fluffstar, giving a thumbs up with one paw. The Galactic Council Chamber had never hosted an event like this, not in its 1,000 cycles of interstellar legislation, territorial disputes, and painfully boring discussions about cargo tariffs. Now, the same chamber that once echoed with declarations of war and diplomatic ultimatums was filled with laughter, glitter, holographic sparkles, and a surprising number of bouncy chairs. At the central dais, Fluffstar, the AI companion originally intended to monitor human juveniles, floated in midair, doing gentle aerial spins while projecting a synchronized display of mathematical formulas and cute animal gifs. Every now and then, it shot out a holographic celebratory ribbon labeled with equations proving the benefits of early cross-cultural educational exposure. The crowd of alien dignitaries stared in rapt silence. Seated just below the display, Officer Winters sipped her coffee like this was the most natural thing in the universe. Ambassador Crick, beside her, sat with antennae twitching as though trying to recalibrate their understanding of reality. Buzz S. hovered a few rows back, his glowing wings displaying a slideshow of multi-species science fair triumphs and recent cross-species curriculum outlines. Directive 12, a rigid, cube-shaped being from the Bureau of Legislative Purity, was visibly vibrating, not out of anger, but awe. They have rewritten the concept of diplomacy, it murmured, with glitter. Winters exhaled and set her mug down. Not bad for a group of kids who started by breaking into a mining robot. They've unified policy, education, and scientific cooperation across 14 major civilizations, Crick added, still sounding faintly stunned. And their ambassador is a cartoonish floating pet AI. Technically, Winters said with a smirk, Fluffstar is an educational emotional companion construct with advanced pattern recognition, procedural logic flexibility, and the best joke database in known space. Fluffstar took that moment to project a tiny monocle onto its holographic eye, give a cheeky wink, and say, I am also certified in baking simulation. Cupcake diplomacy is statistically underutilized. A series of approving beeps echoed from a contingent of gelatinous diplomats in the West Gallery. The chamber's main holographic display flared again, a vote tally. It hovered over the council, glowing bright green, and reading, age minimum for diplomatic youth observers, removed. Vote passed, unanimous. Gasps and cheers rippled through the room. From the observation balconies above, dozens of human and alien children celebrated with synchronized high fives, glowing ribbon streams, and coordinated chants of, we're not just chaos, we're learning. Officer Winters gave Crick a side glance. You were worried about the climbing rocks in a garden. I still have nightmares about that, Crick muttered, though there was a small smile forming beneath her otherwise exasperated expression. You know what this means? Winters asked, raising a brow, that the next council session may begin with a knock-knock joke. That, and this is just the beginning. The chamber doors burst open dramatically, and the wobbling wonders marched in playing their theme song, a remix of quantum waveforms and slime percussion. Behind them, Buzz S fluttered beside Aurix and Directive 12's youngest node, both wearing mock administrator robes and clearly preparing a presentation. The children had already scheduled a subcommittee on cross-species educational grants and art-based conflict resolution. Directive 12 turned its primary faceplate to Officer Winters. We may require another wing on this facility, preferably one with slime-proof flooring and reinforced imagination filters. I'll put in the request, she said, as the newly minted Juvenile Observer Corps filed into their official seats, some of them upside down, some on beanbags. The council adapted. New protocols, new seating charts, and for the first time in galactic history, a diplomatic council began its session with synchronized laughter, shared curiosity, and a holographic hamster-powered wheel of procedural amendments. Ambassador Crick leaned back in her seat and whispered, they didn't just lower the age requirement. They reinvented the job. No, Winters agreed. They made it fun. Above them, Fluffstar's image expanded, unfurling a banner in glowing letters. Welcome to the age of curious diplomats. And beneath it, in bold animated glitter, now with 300% more chaos and cupcakes. The chamber erupted in cheers as a new era began, one forged not by treaties and threats, but by nap breaks, snack tables, spontaneous musical numbers, and the most powerful force in the known universe, children with clipboards and no sense of limitation.